Hello. There we go. Okay. I do apologize. I've been having a lot of trouble with StreamYards at the moment. So welcome back to another Fundamentalist Fails. It is Friday for me. It is Friday the 4th of July for me. So, we are in American sort of Independence Day, 4th of July celebration for Americans. It's also World Meerkat Day, I'll have you know. And quite frankly, I'm very sorry to all my American friends, but the meerkats mean a lot more to me. I've been having a lot of problems with StreamYard, so I really do apologize. The sound sometimes doesn't work. Obviously, like, I can't get my virtual camera working, so I'm forced to work with this. It's been a nightmare for me over the last 2 or 3 streams I've done. So really unhappy with StreamYard, and I think I will be changing them up. So hey, if you've got any suggestions for another platform to use, I'm looking at Restream at the moment is probably the one that I'm going to go for. Looks fairly solid. But yeah, this is terrible. So I am very unimpressed with StreamYard, and I think I am going to dump it. So that aside, that's not your problem, though. That is entirely my problem. I totally understand. But we're here for Fundamentalist Fails, and today we are talking about Michael Knowles, who I drop in with occasionally just because he is the most laughably terrible human being that I can find. Really, really. Burgers and Boom Day? I've got no idea what that means. What is that? Burgers and Boom Boom Day. Right. The American 4th of July. Right. Okay. Yeah. Fireworks and setting your forests ablaze and things like that, which is questionable. And I mean, a bit of the news that I saw today was the sort of attack on firefighters. Just seems why I don't understand. I don't understand. It's so weird. So if you're unaware, there was, I believe it's Idaho in America, a guy set a fire as a trap. Oh, I don't even have my light on. There we go. Set a trap for firefighters, and then sort of sprung on them and ambushed them with guns and shot at them and injured, and I think maybe killed a couple of firefighters, which is so wild. It is so ridiculous that somebody in this mental state can actually own a weapon capable of doing this kind of harm. I mean, sort of firefighters are the one thing which generally across society we go where fire is bad. That's almost inbuilt to us as a species, that fire be bad. Mind you, having said that, sort of watching things burn is kind of one of the things we take a bit of pleasure from. But a lot of fireworks are banned here because in Australia, we call them bushfires, same as wildfires over there. Absolutely, we have fire ban days, right? There's days in Australia where you're not allowed to light fires and burn stuff at all because it is too damn dangerous. So, we have fire ban days. It's going to be too hot. It's going to be too dry. And it's just, yeah, this is wild. Something needs to be done about these, people who are quite obviously not in their right minds being able to get hold of firearms. Like, seriously, I don't, you can cry out mental health all you want, but yes, that's a problem, but you also allow these people to be able to get firearms, anybody, without any checks. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Oh, hey, Hill Hugger, good to see you. And Tori, good to see you. Jedi, good to see you. Yeah, but today I want to talk about Michael Knowles. Now, he went on Jubilee, and okay, I would love to do his thing on Jubilee because you've really got college kids absolutely demolishing the guy. Like, he's terrible. Like, it was so weird with him on Jubilee because basically he was sort of going, well, marriage isn't at the stricter sense. Gay marriage isn't on the stricter sense married, and it's marriage. And people are like, well, why? It's accepted by the government. It's accepted by other people. It's perfectly valid. What does a straight marriage have over a gay marriage? And he just said, well, it's not really marriage, and he couldn't explain why. And just sort of it was comical. It was absolutely comical because at one point he's like, "Well, I'm right." Not saying why he's right, but just expressing that he's right, which he does a lot of. So he's really a laughable kind of debater because he doesn't he doesn't actually he doesn't actually argue for things. He just sort of makes claims. It's almost like a presuppositionalist kind of position. Just makes all kinds of claims, refuses to back them up, and then just keeps repeating how right he is. That's not an argument. That's not a reason for anyone to believe him. But I can't do Jubilee stuff. They are, to say copyright happy is an understatement. They are the worst, like the very worst. I can't play 5 minutes of them without them getting upset and shutting down my stream. So Jubilee, worst channel ever in my opinion, because they do not allow you to comment on their stuff essentially. Hmm. But I would what I did do is I went through a couple of the videos and I found some. This might be a shorter episode because they're only 5 minutes, but I've got a few of them. And just what struck me was just at how outrageous this man lies. Right? For people that take sort of the moral high ground and go on about the 10 commandments. The 10 commandments, thou shalt not bear false witness is one of them. They want to put them up in schools. This man lies so much. And so I really think that this kind of hypocrisy has got to be pointed out. It is shocking how much he misrepresents the truth of things. Absolutely shocking. I Absolutely shocking. But I wanted to say I do have a debate coming up, and I might be kind to myself and link to my upcoming debate. Feel free to share it and spread it round. We want people to come in and I love the support when I am debating, even though I really would like to pay more attention to the chat. I generally tend to get focused on one thing. But I absolutely love that people come in and they're in the chat and they're sort of, just saying stuff and commenting on it. And it's absolutely fantastic. Give me one sec. I have to find my own channel. Wow. One day I'll get good at this. One day, but it's not today. And yeah, and I mean, big props to Wi-Fi Gospel. I thought he sort of got a bit mauled during the last debate, but he's willing to try again. Hey, I appreciate I appreciate the fortitude, quite frankly. Like, well done you, well done you. That's good. That's good. Sucker for punishment, I guess. No, I'm really joking. I do respect that he does actually want to stand up and debate. Like actually step into a debate. Unlike some of his contemporaries that say they want to debate and then, don't show up. Don't show up. Not talking about anyone in particular, but just saying, just saying. But let's get into this now. I'm going to do these from sort of what I found to be the least egregious to the most egregious lies. And by egregious, I don't mean how insulting it is, but how outright deceptive the man is being, kind of thing. So the first one, and I'll get that queued up. Share. Okay. Now this one was titled leaked intel suggests that the Iranian nuclear sites may not have been obliterated. Yeah, the intel suggests the Iranian nuclear sites may not have been obliterated. So this is him getting a little bit tetchy at the Iranian. There was a report that came out, a preliminary finding that was leaked apparently, that sort of said, hey, the Iranian nuclear sites may have only been set back a couple of months. And this was a leaked report from the Pentagon. Now, it was only preliminary findings, but the news like CNN ran it. And Trump got outraged that it didn't say that they were obliterated, which is the words that he used. Now, for a start, it was a preliminary report. So it may have been the case that a lot of damage was done, but this report suggested not that much damage done. The weirdest thing was that they turned it into well, if you say that they're not completely and utterly destroyed, then you're disrespecting the pilots that flew the mission for some reason. Like, it's so weird. It's so weird. But anyway, we'll see what this man has to. You know what? I even dislike how he looks. To be honest with you, like Michael Knowles, to me, he looks like he would be. You remember that kid at school that would like make up stories about other people in order to get them into trouble, kind of thing. Like not just somebody that you know was a tattletale and dobbed people in and sort of told them, but would make up stories in order to get people into trouble. And you know, feel powerful and important, kind of thing. He seems like that kind of kid, you know, like just a horrible, horrible person.
You're getting some reports out now. New York Times has a report that the Iranian nuclear sites.
And it's interesting because on his table you can see everything that everything that he represents, like this shallow man represents. He's got the lamp that's all conservative and conservative windows and stuff, you know, like the old time money, which he probably doesn't come from, but you know, who knows? You know, he flogs cigars. He's there for the grift. And the leftist tears. It's like, yeah, what? Like, what? Like this guy actually thinks that you know, he is causing people to break down. Like as I said, he went on to Jubilee and got absolutely schooled by just random, you know, college people. Like it's just, he was so bad. You know, I actually find him funny. He's that bad, like really. Well, yes, I realize that, Jedi. They sent a ton of money sending stealth bombers. And they may or may not have. See, nobody's saying it definitely, you know, any kind of certainty, because obviously when you bomb a country, you don't really have the ability to go in and inspect the damage done, right? This is the thing. Like you can't go bomb a country and then go, excuse me, sir, could we send some people in to see how much damage that bombing did? It's really just you have to pick up on intelligence and sort of assess what you think the damage that it did from their, you know, the movements and what they're doing to, you know, whether they're rebuilding, whether they're doing it. Like, it's very hard to do. There is a International Energy Committee. What is it? The International Atomic Energy Agency, who this sort of seemed to come from. This sort of information seemed to come from, who are not the US. They're an international agency that seemed to be saying, hey, it wasn't set back as much as the government's saying. But you know, regardless, like they could have done the perfect run. And, you know, the Iranians build it under a mountain. It's very hard to penetrate through too. It doesn't, you know, nobody's disparaging the pilots or the bombers or the bombs or anything like that. We're just saying, hey, what's the outcome? What's the facts here? CNN ran it. See, and the thing is that CNN and MSNBC and all those stations, a large part of why they run a story like this isn't because they want to make the Trump administration look bad. They run it because they're sensationalist hacks, right? They lean into sensationalism. So anything that is controversial, anything that is outrageous, anything that is you know, the most horrible news ever, they'll lean into, because they want to sell things and people will read that or watch it or, you know, click on it. That's what they do. the whole thing about the media being a sensationalist outlet is true. It's pure sensationalism, but I'm not sure it's they thought, it's this big conspiracy to hurt Trump. I don't think it is. I think they're just sensationalists. If it was, some other thing like that, they'd be running that as well. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like that's what they're after. And I mean, they did say it was a preliminary report, but whatever.
Might not have been totally obliterated. So you got this piece of strike set back Iran's nuclear program by only a few months, U.S. report says. Preliminary classified findings indicate that the attack sealed off the entrances to 2 facilities, but did not collapse their underground buildings. And here's why, actually, it wasn't that good. And what Trump did is just not that impressive.
Okay, so number one, he's misrepresenting the report. That's what it said. Okay, number one, that's a preliminary report. Okay, and that's what you just said, a preliminary report, right? This is a preliminary report. I don't, but what I want you to pay attention to, how is he's not saying, hey, this isn't a real report from the Pentagon, right? Like he doesn't say, hey, this has been made up. This is a false thing that they've made up. No, he's not saying that, because this report is probably an actual report from the Pentagon. Right now, is it true? It's a preliminary report. We don't know. But that's what it says. That was the initial report from the people that are trying to gauge the damage done. According to one source that I said, it was a preliminary DIA assessment, which was based on information from little more than 24 hours after the strikes. It was based upon their intelligence and also intelligence from the International Atomic Energy Agency. So, 24 hours later, you may be completely wrong, but just bringing out the report, that's like he's sort of making it sound like, it's just a false report. No, it's not. It's like he's not actually questioning whether it's a report from the Pentagon.
John Parnell, who is the spokesman for the Pentagon, he responded. He said, we dropped 14 30,000-pound bombs directly on their target, 420,000 pounds of bombs. It doesn't take a genius to know that these nuclear facilities have been completely obliterated.
Yeah, but the problem is with that it's under a, million-ton mountain. That's the problem, right? Like it doesn't, like you can't just say, hey, we dropped a lot of bombs, therefore success. Okay, even if the pilots did everything right, even if the bombs hit pinpoint precision, the Iranians built it under a mountain for a reason. It is to stop things like this because it's a frigging mountain. That's why the Israeli military could not penetrate it. Just sort of saying, hey, we dropped this amount of ordnance. Yeah, someone's really got to tell you guys that, volume of ordnance does not equal military success necessarily. Big numbers, therefore God. Well, I've heard the argument of infinity, therefore God. I've definitely heard that one. That's one I've heard. Yeah. I mean, they're saying 1 to 2 years, which isn't obliterated either. Like, I think the damage is somewhere in between the, delayed them for months and obliterated completely. It's probably somewhere in the middle. Yeah, which is sort of, 1 to 2 years before they get things up and running again. Although the agency that I mentioned, the International Atomic Energy Agency, hang on a sec, I'll share this. The head of the UN nuclear watchdog on Sunday said Iran could be producing enriched uranium within a few months. They can have, in a matter of a few months, I would say, a few cascades of centrifuges spinning and producing enriched uranium. Iran is a very sophisticated country in terms of nuclear technology. You cannot undo the knowledge that you have or the capacities that you have. So basically he's saying, hey, they can, maybe not at that agency, but maybe they can get it up and running at another agency. So it may not, like, it may be the case that they're misunderstanding what the report is saying. And that is true, yes. And I wanted to mention that actually, suspect culpabilities. I do like that. Those are words that I do like. So you had me at culpabilities. Look, there was that nuclear deal until Trump pulled out of it. That Obama made the Iran nuclear deal was the Iran nuclear. I can't remember the exact name of it, but basically it was an agreement to do inspections and um, check on their thing, and they were abiding by it. They weren't developing weapons grade uranium. They were only doing it for power. Everything was rolling along, and as usual, Trump couldn't stand that something somebody else did was working, so he pulled out of it. It's ridiculous. You know, So verifying the extent of the damage was made more difficult. Sorry, I'll share this. Verifying the extent of the damage was made more difficult on Wednesday after Iran put in a new law to suspend cooperation with the International Atomic Enforcement Agency, Energy Agency. Sorry. Iran has accused nuclear watchdog of siding with Western countries and providing a justification for Israel's airstrike. So now they've pulled out of the international agency from the UN that allowed us to see where their actual, what stage they were at. And this is what Trump did. A State Department spokesperson called the move unacceptable and said that Iran must fully comply with its nuclear non-proliferation treaty obligations, including by providing the Energy Organization with information on undeclared nuclear. Yeah, so basically, you bomb these people, and then you say, "Yeah, and now we want to send in a people to inspect." Like ridiculous. How do you even attempt that? Like, if you bomb somebody, generally they're not going to agree to what you ask of them. Generally speaking. Really? Can I get my 18-year-old breast back? I don't get rid of these man boobs. But yeah, that's the stupidity that's coming out of here, and it's just like, why not work with them? I don't know. It's so baffling. But you have idiots like, Michael Knowles basically going, "Oh, this report is it was a preliminary report, dude." And it reminds me that CNN reported there was an app to monitor ICE activities, like just say when the ICE is in your area, when these thugs are in your area rounding people up without any due process. And now they're being sued by Trump and the talking about arresting people in CNN for simply reporting on the existence of this app. It's wild. It is so wild.
New York Post, though, even, which is a little bit more right-wing, is hitting it from another angle. It says, top Trump official calls U.S. airstrikes on Iran pointless, suggests deep state swayed president. This is great clickbait, and because it's a total red herring here. The Trump official reportedly called the U.S. airstrikes pointless before we knew what their effect was. He was just opposed to them in principle. So that actually has no bearing whatsoever on whether or not they collapse the nuclear facilities. It's just a guy who said, "Look, I just disagree with military intervention generally."
Well, no, he's basically saying it's pointless because, as the energy agency said, the International Energy Agency said, once they have the knowledge of how to do these things, you can't bomb that knowledge out of them. You can't stop them from doing it. So it's kind of pointless. It is just a flexing of muscle. It's just a flex on them. And, it really plays into whatever Netanyahu wants to do, because he's the one that dragged the US into it. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Yeah. But the problem is, Bob, they don't want you to actually talk about, they want the news to be censored. That if they want it to be an incredible success that demolished the area, you can't even talk about anything that sort of defies that narrative. And, they made it pretty clear that it was a preliminary report. Yeah. I mean, so they're now saying it set them back 1 to 2 years. I don't know how much of that is the Pentagon going, well, we did good job, because they're really analyzing their own results. And, I kind of would trust an independent analysis from the United Nations a lot more than people that have been put there by the administration. But,
and they're trying to turn this into a narrative that says that the strikes weren't effective. The New York Times is going at it more directly, saying, well, they didn't even stop the program. To me, this is total desperation. The libs are just out of ways to criticize Trump. And the right.
We're not out of ways to criticize Trump. Trump is flagrantly breaking the law. He's flagrantly betraying the Constitution, the 14th Amendment, the right to due process. He's blatantly... he's got troops in California against every single law. He has to go through the governor, and the governor said no. There's tons of things to criticize Trump. There's the Epstein files thing came out recently. Michael, do you remember that one? We should check the Epstein files that Trump won't release because he wants to take your mind off of it, because he's probably in there a lot. There are of all the claims that we've run out of things to we will run out of things to criticize Trump on when Trump stops doing corrupt, illegal, and stupid things. There won't be a time where that happens. Trump's standard operating mode is corrupt, illegal, and stupid. That's all he does. We're never going to run out of things to criticize until he decides to stop doing this dumb crap. It's boof.
In many ways, he's out of ways to criticize Trump. Trump is he's a coward. He's getting pushed around by the Ayatollah. Or, on the flip side, he's a maniac, belligerent. He's going to start World War III. He's going to get American troops killed. He's going to get us embroiled in an endless war in the Middle East. And then
I don't remember anyone calling him a coward for not bombing Iran. If he went back and said, okay, well, let's start up that nuclear deal again and have inspection, who was calling him a coward? No, it's you guys calling him a coward. Not us, not the left side of things. No, it's you guys, because you think he should just go in there, all guns blazing, send people into war, conquer the country, do a regime change, kick the Ayatollah out because it's going to be that easy. And you don't care about the poor Iranian people who has to, have an invasion of their country, and probably, the collateral damage, as you call it, which is civilian casualties. You don't care about that. I don't think, ugh. Holy crap.
The criticisms, even from the extreme right. He's just doing Israel's bidding. He's going to do whatever Netanyahu says. Didn't look like that yesterday.
Well, no. I think, though, that Netanyahu can trick him into doing what he wants by basically doubling down and then having people pressure him. I think he's very easily influenced. I don't think, he's doing his bidding. I just think that, he's very easily swayed by foreign leaders that he kind of looks up to. I don't think that's a good thing either. Why do it then? I mean, he supposedly, according to one report, and I don't know if this is absolutely true or not, but according to one report, Israel got a go-ahead from the United States to attack Iran, and Trump said, yes, that's fine. So, I mean, what are we supposed to take away from that? Why approve that? I have no idea. No idea. Actually, I said to my wife the other day, I'm like, you know what? Trump did say, drill, baby, drill. That's all we'd be doing is drill, baby, drill for that oil. He didn't actually say he'd restrict that to America. So he may have been talking about Iran. It's a possibility. We don't know. We don't know. I don't know. That's really weird though. Like if he's not doing the bidding of these people, why does he keep doing what they want him to? Except that maybe they trick him into it, which ain't great either. Because it sounds like he's going to relax a lot of sanctions on Russia. Maybe not. He seems very upset with Putin at the moment. Who knows? I don't know. But he seems to want to relax sanctions on Russia, which is exactly what Russia wants. So, why capitulate to these dictators? Setting up the Iran nuclear deal was not capitulating to them. It was working with them to ensure that World War III doesn't break out in the Middle East.
He's just going to get us embroiled in a regime change war. I don't see any regime change wars. He's going to this. And Trump defied all of them. Carried out probably the most successful military operation of our lifetimes.
How do you know that? We haven't even got a full assessment of, he doesn't know that. He doesn't. This is just the narrative that they're trying to spin at the moment. It's so successful. People are worried he's going to embroil us in another war. Yes, we're worried about that. You've basically fired, you've dropped bombs on a country. Like you're at war with Iran. And the stupid thing is I think it was Pete Hegseth. He came out and he sort of said, no, we're not at war with Iran. We're at war with Iran's nuclear facility. And it's like, are you high? Like, seriously, you can't be at, it's like saying, well, I'm not at war with, Denmark. I'm at war with their libraries. Like, how the hell does that work? It's so bad. It is so bad. Like, you can't just be at war with somebody's, power infrastructure. And I thought it was sort of a war crime to bomb nuclear facilities anyway. Mind you, maybe it's a research facility and not actually a power plant. I'm fairly certain it's illegal to bomb power plants just because of the casualties that a meltdown would cause to the civilian population. It's too dangerous. It's why when Ukraine was going at Russia and they were at a nuclear power plant, both sides were accusing each other of attacking the plant. But I think this is a research, so it could be fine. But, what? You can't be at war with somebody's power grid, dude. Seriously. You're at war with the country. Like, stop this nonsense.
Just so, it remains to be seen if the ceasefire holds, but assuming it holds, it was just a complete grand slam. It was a hole in one. It was just unbelievable. I've exhausted my sports metaphors. So they're out of ways to criticize Trump. The only way they can criticize it now is...
Really, it's a hole in one. It's awesome. So he destroyed a facility, killed some generals of Iran. They've tossed out the UN inspections for their atomic energy. Right. They've tossed out the UN inspectors. They're probably now working double time to get everything set up again. How is this a slam dunk? Like, what did America get out of this exactly? I mean, we can be fairly certain Netanyahu got something out of it. He kind of, really, really got his strike against Iran that he wanted. He also got a stay of execution, if you will, because while in a war, he can't have a vote of no confidence in the Israeli parliament. But what did America get out of this exactly? Like, what did you guys get out of this? I don't understand. Maybe you can tell me what you got out of this, why it's such a slam dunk. Because, yeah, Netanyahu is saying, hey, they're just about to have a nuclear device. Nobody else believes that. And Netanyahu's been saying that for 20 years. I don't get it. I don't get how this can be a slam dunk. I mean, yeah, you've pissed off Iran. Yeah. Great. Wow.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe it didn't totally 100% work. But it probably did. I mean, I don't know, maybe it didn't, but that's your best criticism? Well, maybe it just only 99% worked. It didn't 100% work. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we really don't know what stage they are. I think the report suggested that the uranium and other materials had been moved out of the facility before it even hit. If they've still got the centrifuges, then you haven't set them back that far. It's not like they don't know how to set it up and run it again. That's what they're saying. The problem is they still have the knowledge, and if they have the equipment, the facilities are just a change of location. But of course, idiot here, he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand any of this. He just wants it. This is what we call wishful thinking. So usually when you're a strategic military, coordinator, what you do is go with worst case scenarios. You go with, hey, if this only set them back a couple of months, we need to do something extra. You prepare for the worst case scenario. What these idiots are doing is they're going, well, what I want to be true, we're just going to say that because it's what I want to be true. Look, it could have been 99% successful. Sure. What does that get us? Where does that get us? Iran's kicked out all of the inspections. They're going to develop again. They're not going to work with you. The whole thing was, we're going to kick Iran's ass, and Iran's going to, fall over and surrender and, just do whatever we want on the nuclear thing and, capitulate. You're not, you do not understand who the Ayatollah is. He is a person that claims direct descendancy from Muhammad and is a religious zealot. Bombing them will not make them roll over. It won't. And if they had anybody with any kind of intelligence in their military hierarchy at the moment, and instead of Pete Hegseth, they would know that. The Iranians, they're not going to be cowed by, a show of force. Wow.
All right. Go back to the drawing board, guys. If you're listening to this show with ads, why? I know why, because of my great ad transitions. Well, Daily Wire Plus get cut up.
Yeah, I don't want to see your ads. Join the fight.
With Peterson's new series, Parenting. That's people who believe in is responding in a slightly different, though equally farcical way. CNN is not focusing on the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of the bunker buster attack. CNN is trying to cultivate sympathy for the Ayatollah, because you just misunderstand. You ugly.
Really, the Ayatollah. So CNN, sort of one of the most capitalist corporate entities around. Don't get me wrong, they're definitely to the left of the extreme right, Daily Wire and stuff. That's why they don't like them. But they still are a corporation interested in making profits. They're not trying to make the Ayatollah look good. They are in conflict, just absolutely ideologically, with a Muslim theocracy. The idea that they're somehow in cahoots or CNN is trying to make them look good. No, they didn't make this report up. They got it from the Pentagon. And yeah, maybe it shouldn't have been leaked, but if you're going to make crap up, maybe it should.
Americans, you just don't have enough cultural enrichment to understand that when the Iranians chant death to America, it's actually an act of friendship.
To Israel.
Okay. So there's a reason why the Iranians hate America outside of their fundamentalist religion. And don't get me wrong, there's certainly a part of that there, that they are, the regime is fundamentalist Muslims, and they, ever since the Crusades and the problems with Muslims fighting Christians in the Middle East, it's always, don't get me wrong, that's part of it. But another part of it, and what sort of the average Iranian really hates America for, is their involvement in overthrowing their democratically elected government in order to install the Shah. Now, who is the Shah? If you're not familiar with the Shah was a monarchy. It was an basically a king of Persia, right? Like you had remember that game, The Prince of Persia? Well, there was a king of Persia as well. The king of Persia was the Shah, old monarchy that had been there for ages. And they were a repressive and horrible regime that had really treated the people badly. Okay, that was the Shah. He was overthrown in favor of a democratic government, and they had a democratic government. And then they elected a government that wasn't particularly friendly to the US. Don't get me wrong, it was still a democracy. They still, believed in democracy. It wasn't this death to America. It's just, hey, America is exploiting the Middle East for oil. We are going to not allow that under our regime. Okay, just basically a pushback on America. America sent the CIA in, and the CIA helped separatists with the Shah, right? This despotic, tyrannical regime to overthrow the democratically elected government and install a ruthless dictator in their country. Okay, this all happened in the 60s and 70s. So then it became a dictatorship again. Who was a dictatorship but friendly to America? Because, of course, they had helped the Shah take control back of the country through oppressing the people, lots of, unaliving people, lots of stopping people from speaking up, a lot of this stuff going on, a lot of violence in the Shah taking back over. Now, in the wake of that, people turned to the main uprising against the Shah was a very religious section of the population that were fundamentalist Muslim. And they led the charge against the Shah, overthrew him, and that became the government, basically, a theocracy. And that's where we are right now. That because they overthrew this tyrannical, horrible dictator, they were seen as the better choice than that, right? Even though they're a Muslim theocracy and they're horrible to their people, sure, but they weren't that, which was a absolutely oppressive and tyrannical government. Now, it's important to understand that a lot of Iranians don't like their government. It's like, I'm not big on my government or the American government or a lot of governments. Yeah, they don't like it. But the Iranian people fear America way more than they fear their own government. So the more America behaves like this, the more support the Ayatollah gets. Because the people go, well, we're being bombed by America. And that's why they're so down on America. You've got to look at this from their point of view. Your country overthrew a democratically elected government because they didn't really want to work with them and installed a brutal dictator who probably killed some of your family. You're not going to be real big on them. Now, there's a lot of stuff that happened there, but and that's sort of very short breakdown, but it's important to understand where these people are coming from. And if you don't want them shouting this, don't bomb their country. Like, it's so wild. I'm not saying they're blameless and that they should be doing that, right? I don't think that that's the way to go. But at the same time, you've got to understand that your country did some real harm in here. Like, the Shah was ruthless. And you facilitated him coming back into power, which was awful. Absolutely awful.
Israel stays in place. And that is part of the discussion, right?
Yes, absolutely part of the discussion. And, I remember, Dan, at one point being in Tehran years ago, and they're chanting death to America all around me, even as I say, oh, I'm an American reporting for CNN, and they were happy to speak to me. So that those two sort of jarring realities of the chant and yet the friendliness have existed together.
Mostly friendly murder threat.
Right, because they're not saying that they don't want to kill all Americans. They're talking about the country itself, what it represents. And in their mind, oh, Robin, hello, Robin. What it represents is this horrible influence on their country, which installed a dictator and made their lives miserable for ages. Like they may not wish any harm to the people. It's like you can love your fellow people and hate the government. So we've got to really understand where they're coming from. That they might not hate Americans, but they sure as shit hate America, the actual country, what it represents. And quite frankly, I'm not huge on it either at the moment. It's doing some horrible things, including to its own people. And that's, but it's important to separate. Like, you know, like we may hate Iran, right? We say Iran is horrible. Yes, but that doesn't mean we hate Iranians, the people. The people are actually really nice. I think Erdogan in Turkey, like I hate Turkey, the country, for all that it's devolved into under Erdogan, who is a ruthless strongman. But the Turkish people are lovely and kind and generous and nice. We can't conflate, you know, he is just trying to conflate, oh, well, if they hate America, they hate Americans. And that might not be the case. Don't get me wrong, there's probably some, you know, religious zealots out there who hate all Americans, especially the Christians. Don't get me wrong, it probably exists. But that's not the average person. It's you know, you've got to separate that. Because, you know, I remember going to a spoken word by Henry Rollins. And Henry Rollins, he used to sing in a band called Black Flag. He did some acting. He did a really good movie called, I think it was He Never Died, about Cain basically still walking the earth. It was quite good, actually. But Henry Rollins was talking about how he would search for the next country he was vacationing to or going to visit based upon the no-fly list from America. So he would just get the list and choose countries, and he would go to these countries and talk to people out in the street. And people were generally nice and friendly. And he sort of said, everybody kind of wants the same thing, to be able to, you know, live and work and have family and enjoy their lives and love people and be loved. You know, everybody's after the same thing, really. And, you know, he'd talk to people and say, hey, how you doing? You know, I'm an American. And they're like, oh, that's fine. Really hate your government. And he's like, yeah, I'm not big on my government. You know, your government sucks as well. And they're like, yeah, I'm not big on my government either. You know what I mean? Like, it's just this thing that we run into where we mistake the people of a country for the government of the country and the people who are running the country, right? We can't mix them up, because most of the people are like, well, I don't like my government, but they're the best option available. And they're what people have decided to go with, mostly because they're afraid. You know, people are afraid of immigrants, so they go for Trump. People are afraid of this, so they go for, you know, people are afraid of the US, so they go for the Ayatollah. Like, we got to stop doing this, like, really. But Henry Rollins, what a guy. He basically didn't do stand-up. He did just spoken word, just would stand up there and tell stories from his life. And honestly, I could sit down for hours and listen to him. What an interesting guy. I highly recommend, if you do get to see Henry Rollins, like, just talk about his life, talk about his experiences. Highly recommend. Very interesting guy.
That's just what it is. We had mostly fiery but mostly peaceful protests. Now we have mostly friendly death to America chants.
Uh-huh.
Gonna have to go back to the drawing board on that one too. I don't think that's persuading anyone.
Yeah, well, if you understand what it means and don't sort of conflate the government of America with the people of America, then you'll probably understand a bit better. You know, because when you translate something, when it says death to America, it may translate badly, as they're saying down with the country, like down with America. It doesn't mean death to all Americans everywhere. That's not really what they're trying to convey. But of course, if you're a idiot right winger with who looks and has the intelligence of a gerbil like Michael Knowles, you can't tell the difference.
Did you like that?
No, I didn't like that clip, and you're an idiot. this guy is absolutely terrible. Now, I want to give a trigger warning for this one. He is talking about LGBTQI issues, and he is not very sensitive to them. I get that, if you feel a bit under the weather, if you feel like you don't want to hear something frustrating or just insulting or whatever, I totally get it. And maybe choose something else that's better for your well-being, because he is very, very callous in his dealings with them. And this is one I really want to talk about, because he really just does lie his ass off. That's why this is called, like, he's a false witness machine, because he just lies his ass off. It's actually horrendous how much he lies. But again, it's about LGBTQI, and it is Michael Knowles, who is, well, I think you're picking it up. He's a complete ass. He conflates things. He takes things in black and white. He doesn't want to look at nuance. He doesn't want to look at anything, complex. He wants to just trot out these racist, bigoted, talking points that, I mean, he's an idiot, let's face it. But I totally get that if you're under the weather or you feel a bit, down, you might want to give this one a miss. Totally understand. Do not apologize if that's what you want to do at all, because I understand. Yeah, but this is regarding Jojo Siwa, who I didn't know who they were. I'll show you what I mean. It just, the man does not understand a damn thing. It's actually impressive how much he doesn't understand.
Most important story, of course, of the last week. Jojo Siwa says that she was pressured to be a lesbian. Who is Jojo Siwa? I don't know, really. I think she's an actress and a singer.
Yeah, she's an actress and a singer. And just before we get started, when he says she was pressured to be a lesbian, that's not actually the story. Okay, I'll show you the story on BuzzFeed and see if you can pick up the difference, right? So let's talk about, this is the BuzzFeed article. This is sort of the thing. She felt pressure to identify as a lesbian, right? Not be, identify, right? That's the main thing that you've got to understand, and why this guy is an absolute idiot, because he doesn't understand what the difference between being something is and identifying as something. Like, it's very, very strange. You'll get what I mean when we go along.
Sure. Something like she's a pop culture figure, and she was a lesbian, but she's not a lesbian anymore, because she posted a picture, or her boyfriend posted a picture with a guy. She was like lying in bed with him, all nuzzled up, and it wasn't even a girly boy. It wasn't even a guy who paints his nails or something.
Yeah. So first off, I don't understand why they're so interested in, this person's sexuality. Like, who cares? She was a lesbian. You can be, like, I've met a whole load of people in my life, and some people I've met have different preferences for different things. And I'll explain what I mean by that. They basically will go, hey, I'm attracted to both men and women. I will have sex with women, but I only want to have a serious relationship with a guy, right? That's their preference. As long as you're being honest and upfront about it, and, not stringing any, who cares? That's entirely your choice. That's your preference. That is your sexual preference. I have no right to tell you, hey, you should have, this, that, or the other with men and women, or just men, or just women, or whatever. That's not my place. But of course, this idiot thinks it's his place. There have been people that have been, they say, oh, I'm gay. And then they meet a woman, and hey, they are attracted to the woman. And then, you change as you go along. Sexuality is a lot more fluid than what this moron thinks. So he thinks that it's like, well, if you say, hey, I'm gay, you can't change that identity. And that's not true. That's not true. There's a lot of people that said, hey, I'm straight, I got married, and then gone, whoops, I find out that I'm gay. I like men. a whole lot more. There's people that are bi that like both men and women. But let's be clear about this. What she's talking about is her feeling pressure to say I'm a lesbian instead of saying, hey, I'm bi, or I have a fluid sexuality. I believe that she now identifies as queer. Now, if you're unaware of what queer means, queer is just an umbrella term for anything that may not fit, like pansexual, for instance, like pansexual that sort of has a love of everything, or, just fluid sexuality that may vary from, you may have attractions to, women at some point in your life, and then it goes to men. Like we understand this. It's just an umbrella term that however you identify, that's just what you identify as. And that's fine if that changed. That's absolutely fine. No one's got a right to tell you who you ought to be attracted to and who you ought not to be attracted to. It's just, it's repugnant and weird. But this person saying, hey, she was pressured to be a lesbian is not right. She's saying she was queer and she felt pressure to identify as a lesbian. Right? Doesn't mean that she doesn't enjoy the sexual activity with women or men or both. It just says that's what she felt like she should identify as because she was with women, right? She still is attracted to women. She calls herself queer and sort of says, hey, I'm probably more accurately pansexual. Sure, absolutely. Doesn't mean she was pressured into it. But of course, Knowles doesn't understand any of these terms. He doesn't understand that, like, if you're a woman that likes women, you've got to be a lesbian. No, you can be bi, you can be queer, you can be pans. There's a lot of different things you can be. You gerbil-looking mofo. You don't have to be lesbian. Like, it's just so. It's so reductionist. It's so ignorant. He doesn't understand anything. It's just silly. And the way that he's misrepresenting it, because, oh boy, does he misrepresent it.
Was like a Giga Chad kind of looking guy. Very strange behavior for a lesbian.
What very strange, but is it? She's saying that she isn't a lesbian. Isn't that normal for not a lesbian? I get that he's saying, hey, if you're a lesbian, you wouldn't be attracted to guys. Well, technically, no. But if you are bi, you would be. And it can be the manliest guy in the universe. If you're bi, you're still attracted to both men and women. You moron.
And she's addressed this. JoJo says, quote, when I came out at 17, it's a minor.
Well, yeah, but that actually is an age of consent for a lot of different countries. Like, not every country. I mean, age of consent, I think that's under 18 in some states, isn't it? Yeah, it ranges from state to state, ranging from 16 to 18. 8 states have a minimum age of 17, and 11 states yeah, so I mean, it varies from state to state. So a minor, well, yeah, but if somebody came out and said, hey, I'm 17 and I've got a boyfriend and we're having sex, it's not illegal, Michael. Not illegal. It really depends on the age of consent. Now, I'm not anyone to judge whether that's a good or a bad thing. I don't know. Okay, like, I'm not going to say, hey, but sort of saying, hey, you're a minor. It's just like, well, the thing that it underlies is if she came out and said she had a boyfriend and was engaged in some sort of sexual relationship at 17, he probably wouldn't bat an eyelid. He would go, yeah, that's fine and normal. It isn't that she's underage. It's the fact that she's queer or gay that is the problem. Yeah, it's 16 where I am, actually. That's the thing. It is. Now, I don't know whether that's right or wrong. That's what they've decided. Yeah, 16 in Canada. Yeah, a lot of places it is. I still think it'd be wrong for somebody over 18 to engage with a 16-year-old like that. But, It's not against the law. It's not.
I said, I'm pansexual because I don't care about gender. This is what she said to
Right.
the Daily Mail. But then I kind of boxed myself in and I said, I'm a lesbian. And I think I did that because of pressure. As for where that pressure came from, she says, quote, in a weird way, I think it came a little bit from inside the community at times, the LGBT LMNOP community. From people I know, from partners I've had, you just put in this world where you feel like, because you now have said, oh, I'm a lesbian. You have to be a lesbian. And the truth is, man, sexuality is fluid, you know? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she's not wrong. And she's sort of talking about peer pressure, right? Like, this is the thing. When she said she was pressured, it wasn't like people coming up to her and going, don't you dare not say you're a lesbian. Don't you dare say you're queer. No, it's just peer pressure. Like, peer pressure, he doesn't seem to understand this. When we have peer pressure, it's basically it's not anyone trying to make you do anything. It's just people are doing stuff and you feel like you should go along because everybody's doing it and you don't want to be the one on the outside. So if she just hung around with a lot of women that were lesbians, she might feel peer pressure to identify as such because, that's what everyone else is doing. Like, you can have peer pressure from someone going to you and going, hey, we're going to get some drinks. Do you want to come to get some drinks? Now, you may feel like you should do that because everybody else is. That's peer pressure. It doesn't mean that someone's forcing you to do it, and it doesn't mean that they're doing anything wrong. It's just that a lot of people are doing it and, you feel like you should go along with it, kind of thing. Right. Um, so I think the type of pressure that she's talking about is not, um, you know, and that she could have had fluid sexuality. She could have been lesbian, just like women at the time, and now she finds herself attracted to men. Good luck to her. Big frigging deal. Who cares? Who cares? This guy cares. Left-handed Jedi. My friend, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Jedi. I'm going to call out these names. Do I have even though, yeah, like the StreamYard has been making me rage lately, so I'm probably gonna change it. Absolutely. Absolutely. That goes out to It's Probing Time. Reed S. Robin Webster, Marty, Cameo, Spooky, Bedhair. Wow, that's reversal to Robin. Got her back. That's awesome, Jedi. Actually, now that it is a new month, it is July. So what I get to do, thank you so much for reminding me, Jedi. That's awesome, mate. Is do the nope, I can't do it from there. Hang on a sec. I'll just organize myself. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, big deal. She was, she was younger, liked women, got older, likes men as well. Who cares? Who gives a shit? It's fine. It's not like if you say, hey, I'm a lesbian, you have to be that for the rest of your life. And you can't say, hey, I was a lesbian before and now I like all kinds of genders. That's totally fine, you muppet. It's Gerbil has no idea what he's talking about. Boom. Can I hit somebody? Can I hit maybe Deviant or somebody? Readership's going out. Yes. Okay, that goes out to Bob, Joe, Heron, Citizen 9, Bryce Burchett, and Apostate Sisters. Woo! Thank you. Sorry if that's a bit loud. I got carried away. I got carried away with the Apostate Sisters. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Winners, winners, chicken dinners. Enjoy your emotes and other benefits. You all are winners in my evaluation. Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate it. And yeah, fantastic. I don't know what I'd do without you. I would absolutely miss everything, quite frankly. But there you go. Yeah, hit Robin. Hit her again. She hasn't got enough. Hit her again. I don't think you can do that, but do it anyway. But yeah, I mean, all of this is like, the average person, the ordinary person, okay, the non-gerbil looking weirdo that hears this, like someone's like, oh, well, I identified as a lesbian, but I really felt pressured to do so. And now I'm with a boyfriend, so I consider myself, queer or, just bi or pansexual. You just go, oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, no worries. I mean, I consider myself straight, right? Like I am attracted to women, the opposite gender of me. That is straight. And I'm a cis male who likes straight women. However, I mean, I'm not ruling out that suddenly I meet some man that blows me away. I'm not going to say, hey, but a man's never attracted me. If it does, then I will say, hey, I'm now bi. And maybe at some point women will no longer attract me and men do. At that point, I will be gay. It's not like, but this isn't this overarching fear that I have that this will happen. It's just that's what I prefer at the moment. It's sort of like, well, if one thing attracts me and another thing doesn't, or if both attracts me, that's fine too. Who is this idiot to start saying, oh, well, they pressured her into being a lesbian? No, they didn't. No, they didn't. She was just attracted to women. And she was attracted to men. She was more pansexual. And she identified it as lesbian and felt some peer pressure to identify as such once she started. That's it. That's the big story. But of course, this gerbil cannot get it right.
Clear away the gobbledygook from that statement. What is she saying?
Yeah, you have a brand account or something, Kip. That's just not playing fair, mate. That's just rude. Quite frankly, I'm very unimpressed. I really want to hit you with the readership so I can point it out. Just so I can basically go, look, Kip Davis has a membership to my channel. I mean, I can only do it for a month because it's only free for a month, but I still can try. That's something I can do. Left-handed Jedi who's trying to, I don't think you can hit Kip. I think that we figured out that he's on a brand account or something. I mean, I really appreciate it, Jedi, but I'm not. You hit Ryan. Okay. All right. Well, I'm impressed anyway. But yeah, I know, mate. I know. But thank you so much. That went out to KCA Randy, Unfornicated, Hernan, Jose, Hernan. I don't know how to say that. There's a thingo over the A. Hernan, Jose, Ryan Coltastic, and T. Winner, chicken dinner. Yeah, Kip Davies has done some, Old Testament sacrificial, magic, so he can't be given free things. This is why we can't have nice things. It's all because of Kip Davies. All because of Kip Davis. All because of him. That's why we can't have nice things. But yeah, I mean, it's. Oh, don't be. Oh, please, Majestic, don't be. It's no problem, mate. Don't, seriously. It's not. You're always welcome. You're always fantastic in the chat. Come on, mate. You've got to take care of yourself first and foremost. I would be upset if anybody gave me something while not being able to take care of themselves. Like, really, you need to take care of yourself, mate. Don't feel that way, or at least try not to. Be kind to yourself, okay? Be kind to yourself. But yeah, I mean, this is why nobody cares about this except for people like Michael Knowles. And let's be clear at why he doesn't like this poor woman who just is trying out and resting in her sexuality, whatever that might be at the time, and sort of saying, hey, I felt some pressure to identify as a lesbian, but I don't do that anymore, and I have a boyfriend, and I'm now, feel I'm pansexual. the reason why he doesn't like that is because he's Christian. That's why he doesn't like it. And he's very, very publicly and very outspoken Christian that it should be man, woman, that's it. He's very open about that. So let's not pretend this is some, oh, well, she was pressured into being a lesbian by the leftist. No, A, she's not saying that. And B, you're just spinning that narrative because you're a liar and you want the country to abide by your personal Christian values, which is man, woman only, thank you.
She's saying young people, kids, teenagers at least, become, because of pressure, peer pressure from the LGBT community.
Nope, didn't say that at all. She did not say that at all. Nope, didn't say that. Didn't say that. This was from BuzzFeed. Now, though that weird straight people will jump on the headline at evidence of some gay conspiracy, but all this does ignore the evident biphobia that underpins their story. And yes, it can come from people that are queer themselves. In fact, I'm certain that any bisexual person you ask says they've experienced some form of biphobia in LGBTQ spaces. There's even a term for it, double discrimination. So it's basically when someone is attracted to both men and women, they can feel pressure from gay people that they're not legitimate. So, that's definitely something to talk about and be understanding of, and, check ourselves. Like, are we being discriminatory towards bi people? If we're gay or whether we're straight, or absolutely. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. But like him spinning it into, oh, she was pressured into, being with women. No, she wasn't. No, she wasn't. She was already attracted to women, and she's saying that she felt pressure not to identify as a bi person or as a pansexual person. She felt pressure to identify as a lesbian. And it may not even have been anything outright said. Peer pressure, like I said, peer pressure can be just other people doing exactly the same thing. And you go, well, I don't want to be, the one to point out the emperor's new clothes, so I'm just going to go along with it. I'm just going to do whatever else everyone else is doing because I don't want to feel like I'm an outsider. Right? They did a study with this. It was actually amazing. They had people go in for a job interview, and whenever somebody came in and they had like sort of scientists planted there at the start, a person stood up, right? Anytime someone came in, 2 or 3 people would stand up, and then the test subjects came in and they felt compelled to stand when somebody came in as well. And then as they did the job interview and cycled them out, eventually there was none of the people that were originally in there, the people that started standing up when somebody entered the room, none of them were there, and they were still doing it. And nobody there knew why, right? Like nobody knew why. But the peer pressure was, well, everyone else is doing it, I better do it. And even after the original people left that started this whole trend, people were still doing it. And of course, as they came in one by one, they would go, well, I don't want to be the one out, and stood. That's peer pressure. It doesn't mean that they're going, well, you have to like women, and if you don't, I'm going to. No, that's not what peer pressure is. It is simply people doing things that are your peers around you, and you feel an obligation or a impulse to do the same in order to fit in with the social group around you. But of course, this is Michael Knowles. He doesn't understand. Like, he couldn't find his ass with an atlas, quite frankly. He wouldn't understand any of this, which is just what an idiot. Like, really.
Is this Pat Robertson? Is this the religious right? Is this the church right? Is this a terrible conversion therapist? Homophobic? Whatever.
Conversion therapy is disgusting and horrible and traumatic on people. So it's kind of ridiculous that he's laughing about it. But that's your people, yeah. Yeah. And, the church and religion has a lot of peer pressure in it. A lot of people from Christian places will go, yeah, don't really believe in it, but, we go along with it. It's what the family does, what everybody around me does, and I just go through the motions. Yeah, that's peer pressure. Just saying.
Saying this? No, it's a girl who said she was a lesbian until 5 seconds ago. Young girl said she was a lesbian as a teenager, and now says, actually, I wasn't really a lesbian, or the way I became a lesbian is because I was peer pressured into it by the LGBT.
No, that is so flagrantly a lie about what she said. She said once she identified as a lesbian, which she was, she felt a peer pressure to keep identifying as a lesbian. That's all. Even though she more thought as she developed that she is pansexual. That's all. She still likes women. She likes men as well. She wasn't forced to like women. That's not what happened. So, I mean, okay, so the cigars, no, they're not Cuban. They're shilling. They're shilling devices. He sells these cigars, like in typical manly man fashion. He thinks cigars make him look, tough and manly instead of that shot does not make him look manly at all. But it's still tobacco, still bad for you, but who cares, right?
Groomed into it as a teenager by the LGBT community. She is saying exactly that.
And this is where we get to a woman who is sexually attracted to other women, identifies as a lesbian, then feels pressure to keep identifying as a lesbian. Now she's saying she was groomed into it. None of that is true. None of that. No, it says atheist. No, it says leftist tears, I believe. Leftist tears, I think. Hang on, I'll type it out. But yeah, so none of this is true. This is just him making a narrative about some person he doesn't even know about their sexuality and how it should be interpreted. But the problem is that he's got like a 2 million people audience that listens to this bullcrap. And it is bullcrap. It is such a distortion of what this young lady said. And it's just like, I don't think I would even care about this story. Like, I guess it's a reminder, it's good of her to speak out. It's a reminder that we must, be sensitive to the preferences of bi people. Sure, absolutely. I agree with that. Maybe it is a reminder that if you are in a gay or a straight community, doesn't really matter either, any community, that we respect people's sexual preferences and we try not to pressure them into identifying with anything that they don't want to identify with. That's a good thing. But apart from that, I don't see he's trying to spin it into this conspiracy to, groom women into being sexually. No, it's not. Like, seriously, you rabid gerbil, get the hell out of here.
The same thing that the religious right and the social conservatives and the so-called homophobes have said for decades. So what is it?
Except it's not that.
Is she right? Choose your answer carefully.
Yes,
I know there are liberals and leftists and all sorts of people, LGBT, LMNOP activists who watch the show. Some of whom are paid to do that so that they can get clips of me, but some of whom who watch it just.
Yeah, no, I watch it to laugh at you for the incredible amount of non-understanding you have of anything. And to make people aware of why you engage with people from the manosphere, I guess, or the toxic masculinity or the extreme right wing, who just have no grasp on what is happening. Because if all you watch is people like this, you will have no grasp on the actuality of what is happening. You will just be lost in this nonsense of how he's misrepresenting things.
Out of their own choice. Keep an open mind. You obviously have one.
Uh-huh.
one of two things can be true. Either what Jojo Siwa said is right, that kids are groomed by the LGBT community into adopting LGBT identities.
No, that's not what she said. So no, that is not right. No, you are doing a straw man of what she said. That is a blatant misrepresentation of what she said.
Into adopting weird sex stuff. Or you have to deny the lived experience and the self-professed sexual orientation and identity of a young queer girl.
No, I don't have to do that either. Because what she identifies as is what she identifies as. Right? She identified as a lesbian of her own bat. She wasn't pressured into that. It was just she was attracted to women and she identifies as a woman. That's it. And that is not like an either-or question, right? Because there's also a third option, and I can point out that they call it a dichotomy. When it's a true dichotomy, there's no other answer. I don't have to deny her identity, and I can say, hey, sexuality is fluid. Your taste can change over time. You don't have to be pigeonholed into one or the other, and you can be a lesbian at one point in your life and pansexual at another point in your life. That's totally fine. Who am I to say? It's up to you to say. It's your identity. And that's great. You've identified as straight, Michael. That's fine. That's fine. Right? Maybe she didn't know she was attracted to men. Maybe she'd only met men she wasn't attracted to and identified as a lesbian. And maybe she met a guy who was hot and she was really attracted to and fell in love with. And hey, that's great. That's great. That's fantastic. All for you. You moron. Like, that is not a true dichotomy at all.
Those are your only two options.
No, they're not my only.
Which one is it?
No, because there is the option that she identified as a lesbian because she was only attracted to women and then met a guy she was attracted to. That's another option. It shows that your dichotomy is not a true dichotomy. It is a false dichotomy, and it should not be taken seriously. Thank you. This is why college kids own this guy in debate, because he just, the amount of fallacies this guy manages to pull off in a few sentences is insane.
Which would it's a tough one, huh?
No, it's not a tough one, because somebody's sexuality is not the same as what they identify as. Okay, and your sexuality can change over time. You can identify as a straight man. There has been plenty of men who have been in a marriage and had kids identified as a straight man and then identified as gay later on when they acknowledged that they were gay. Like, you're misrepresenting what it is here.
What is it?
I can respect the man for, being a straight man in that marriage and then identifying as gay. I can respect that. I can say, hey, he found out he was gay. He's gay. Okay. I just don't see why we've got to pigeonhole people like this. Oh, I forgot. The right wants to ostracize and repress anybody that's not the same as them. I forgot. Yeah. So point out how they're different, and then punish them for being different. Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that.
Well, it's the former. but you could also do the latter.
No, it's not the former or the latter. You can respect her identity, whatever she identifies as, and she hasn't been peer pressured or groomed into being sexually attracted to women. Both of those things can be true. You idiot.
You can also deny people self-identified sexual identities and orientations, because there is such a thing as subjective reality. We can know these things through reason, and it turns out that
I think he means objective. I couldn't understand that. Like, there's such a thing as subjective reality. Is there? I think he misspoke and he meant objective reality. But, how are you going to point out, like, this is the thing. They think they know they can tell people what their sexual attraction is, whether they're attracted to men or women. It's so crazy the way they think they can tell you what's going on inside your head or inside your body, and just sort of tell you what you think, how to think. What the hell? Like, do you really think you know my mind and what I'm attracted to, what I like, better than me? Really? What arrogance.
The whole sexual revolution was false. We talked earlier in the Trump Massey fight about false anthropologies, false conceptions of human nature. There is no falser conception of human nature than the LGBTQ identity. Just ask young erstwhile lesbians, they will tell you. That was a magnificent...
Yeah, I don't, Yeah, so he's talking about anthropology. This man has no degree in any kind of social science at all. Like, at all. Like, what is his actual education? Oh, he's got a Bachelor of Arts in at Yale. Knowles studied history and Italian. Okay, well, I suppose he does have, then history is fine. I don't know. I doubt he really understands that. Oh, hey, girl. Good to see you, mate. Good to see you. What do we have here? I think it is a angry, Trump-addicted gerbil, as far as I can tell. I don't know. It's, But yeah, this whole thing of, well, if anybody in the LGBTQI experiences peer pressure, they're being groomed. Get out of here, you moron. That is not what peer pressure is. Like, seriously. Peer pressure is something different. It isn't even it isn't something that people's gone, well, I want to press you into this. No, it just occurs to us by being in a social group. Why do all of the right-wing Daily Wire guys wear these tweedish coat suits and stuff? Peer pressure. Yeah, so that's that one. This one, so this third one, and this is the last one I'm going to do, but as I said, it might be a shorter one today, so I'd apologize, but this is probably the last one I'm going to do. This is the most egregious of the lot of them. Again, it is involving the assassination on the Minnesota lawmakers. So if you are feeling particularly down, might skip it. Just it covers a lot of topics that may be sensitive. But this is the most egregious one. And keep in mind, we kind of have found out since he broadcast this was called Another Radical Leftist Shoots Lawmakers. Okay, another radical leftist shoots lawmakers. Now, this might have been before we got more information on it, but I want to take you through exactly what he's doing here and why it is so egregiously misrepresenting what happened. And I mean, he's a liar. He lies all the time. It is his bread and butter. It is his, he probably doesn't even realize he's doing it anymore. Just like, a fish doesn't realize it's breathing water. He lives in deception and falsehoods is where he lives.
A guy shot 2 Minnesota lawmakers along with their spouses. A female lawmaker and her husband were killed, and then a male lawmaker and his wife were wounded. The one who was killed is Melissa Hortman, former Speaker of the Minnesota House. She and her husband were shot and killed at their home early Saturday.
And this was disgusting and a tragedy. And it also pointed out the problems with data brokers selling information. The guy obtained their addresses and all of their information from a data broker. What he was doing with it is outrageous. it is, there should be more. Like, this guy had just some random security company. He said he did security work, had a registered security company. So he, as far as we know, that security company didn't do any jobs, but he got the information from being a business and just buying it through data brokers, which is horrendous.
The notable aspect of her political career is she's a Democrat. So instantly you say, okay, well, it's got to be a right-wing Republican who shot her.
Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily. That's the thing. I wouldn't say that. When this story first broke, I was on YouTube and people were saying, hey, it was these leftists doing it, because that was what was being touted on X. These right-wing people, especially these conservative Christians, they're very quick to go to social media and just put on what they think it ought to be, how reality ought to be, regardless of how much information they have. When I was told, hey, it was a left-wing person, I'm like, well, I don't know that. How do you know that? It's just happened. Right? But, oh, it's all over X. Yeah, I'm sure it is. But if you're a critical thinker, you don't go, well, it's all over some, social media place. I'm going to believe that. No, that isn't what you should be doing. You reserve judgment until more information comes in. You don't just go, oh, it is this thing. I guess it's more probable to be somebody on the other side of the political spectrum than these people, but I wouldn't say, yeah, well, you'd expect it to be. No, I wouldn't say that. It could have been a person who is a lifelong Democrat. Could have been. I don't know. But it wasn't.
She's a Democrat, but she was the only Democrat in the Minnesota House to oppose funding healthcare for illegal aliens. So she's a Democrat, but she voted with the Republicans. She was the only lawmaker who was actually killed. A second state lawmaker, Senator John Hoffman, and his wife were shot multiple times and appear to have survived. Then we don't know who this guy is, but the police take a photograph of his car and there are no Kings flyers on his seat. So no Kings, we'll get to that in just a moment. No Kings was this kind of weak, astroturfed, completely cringe protest of Trump over the weekend.
Okay, so here's where he gets into, and this is why I think it's the most egregious. No Kings was huge. It was the biggest protest in American history. It's the biggest protest that has ever been in the USA. And he's like, oh, it was weak, and it was, but then it was astroturf. I think astroturfs is when they're basically referring to people being bought to go in and pretend to be grassroots organizations. And that is just such a ridiculous lie that's coming out from the right. No Kings wasn't giving out money. They weren't sponsoring people. The grassroots organizations were real. This is something that they are just telling their base and their followers to cope with. This is like, okay, so I've got a new name of Michael Knowles. He is now the Pope of Cope. Okay, I firmly believe that, because the cope that these people have to be milling here to say that the No Kings, which was the biggest rally in history, the biggest protest in history, was somehow organized by, paying these millions of people to come out, and it was weak, and it was like, this is a denial of reality, that people were angry at the overstepping of the federal government on lots of issues, on immigration, on constitutional issues, on all these things, and came out to protest. Like, it was huge. It was massive. And, for him to just go, oh, it was weak and it was astroturf. No, it wasn't. Prove it is. But, of course, he never proves anything, because he's an insane gerbil. They don't have to prove anything. They just say it. No, there is nothing dope about this man. There is nothing dope about this man. He is the Pope of Cope.
So he's got flyers protesting Trump
Well, that isn't exactly a flyer. I mean, they were just pieces of paper with no kings written on it. I mean, that's not exactly a flyer. And they don't seem to have anything on the back end of it either. I mean, was he going to maybe pose as a no kings? Because he was posing as a policeman, right? Was he going to pose as a no kings supporter? I don't know. But what he did have, Michael Knowles, is a manifesto of why he did it. Yeah? That gives you a clue. Like, well, yeah, no, I get you. Oh, yeah, I get you. Maybe a dopey Pope of Cope. I got you. The dopey Pope of Cope, Michael Knowles. Congratulations. Look, you know, he had a manifesto, and the reason why is because those lawmakers were, he was incredibly anti-abortion. He was incredibly right-wing conservative. He was incredibly religious. That's why he did it. Because they voted for abortion legislation to support abortion, and he was a right-wing Christian fundamentalist who wanted to stop them because he left the manifesto.
Kings, what we'll get to Kings was this kind of weird flyers protesting Trump all over his car. He goes out and shoots, allegedly, the only Democrat lawmaker who voted against funding healthcare for illegal aliens.
Well, the problem there with Michael's, I mean, I'll generously say logic, is that he had a list of a lot of different lawmakers, all ones that were supporting abortion legislation, and he was anti-abortion. We know all of this. He is just making stuff up at this point. Now, he might have brought this out early on when we hadn't got all the facts in. But the problem is he doesn't update it. He doesn't actually come out with a correction. Okay? If you watch this and you're his supporter and don't watch anything after, that's what you're leaving with. And this is why we meet people with a totally skewed version of reality. Because people like Michael Knowles will come out very early on, say all kinds of nonsense that flies from this idiot's mouth, and then never correct anything they've said. So, you know, people will believe these guys, and they never correct themselves. So they will go on still thinking. I've met people that still think it was a leftist that did this, and it wasn't. Like, there is no situation where you could say that he was on the left or whatever. No situation.
But then there's some evidence that he's a Republican. So all of the evidence that we've seen so far makes you think this would be a Democrat, a far leftist. Who
None of the evidence. They are just wild-ass guesses by you based on almost nothing. That's not evidence. Like, the evidence is that he was angry about abortion. That's it. But what I want you to understand, I'll talk about it later. I'll let him go.
Who's upset at a moderate leftist and who's upset at Trump. But then we find out the suspect is a 57-year-old guy. And he, even though it looked like his car was law enforcement, it seems he was just posing as law enforcement. It wasn't a real law enforcement car. We then find out he's got a LinkedIn or other kind of resume that said that he owned a security company. So you say, okay, that sounds more like a right-winger. It says he did security work overseas, but then actually there's no evidence that he ever did any of that. It might have been just totally made up.
Yeah, making shit up. That sounds like a right-wing thing to do. Yes, he made it up. Maybe. He seemed to be registered with a real company. Whether it did any work or not, I don't think it did. Like, there's no record of him actually, you know, invoicing anybody, doing any security work. He just had that company registered, which is wild that you can register a security company. You know, just some average random right-wing MAGA guy can just register a security company, apparently, and, you know, get hold of guns and use those guns to impersonate apparently.
It might have just been quite just as fictional as the fictional police car that he drove to commit the crimes. Then we find out, on top of all of this, that he was appointed to a state board, the Workforce Development Board, by the super lib Democrat governor Tim Walz back in 2019. So then you think, okay, I guess he's a lib, but the board was
Yeah, I don't think that was the case. I think he was on the board and Tim Walz just continued his work on the board. I think he was appointed by a Republican. I think he was appointed by somebody else. And then like the governor appointed him and Tim Walz just was the governor and said, continue your work. Like, I don't think he actually appointed him to the board. So that's incorrect. So a lot of people have pointed this and saying, oh, Walz is the one that put him there. No, he wasn't. I don't think Walz even knew who he was. He just did a job for the government. And Walz just said, well, just keep doing what you're doing. You know, that doesn't mean he appointed him specifically.
partisan. And I guess he had been appointed to another board by a Republican, maybe. And then they interview the roommate. The roommate says that this shooter was a Trump supporter. So then you say, okay, he's a Republican. But then the roommate says he actually hadn't really talked about politics much recently.
That's not what I got. What I got from it is that he talked about politics less and abortion more. He got involved with religion. So I don't know whether he said, hey, he talked about, he didn't talk about politics anymore. But the roommate said he was, very religious and anti-abortion. That is one thing that definitely came out, and that was the main reason why he did what he did.
And then we get the text. So the alleged shooter sends a text to his roommate saying, first of all, this is like a 57-year-old guy who seems like kind of a loner. He's got roommates. Doesn't seem like he's living in a great family situation. Seems like he's making up a fair bit of his resume. Says, I just want to let you know that I love you guys both. I don't want to say anything more and implicate you in any way because you guys don't know anything about this, but I love you guys and I'm sorry for all the trouble this has caused. Totally bizarre. They then interview the roommate about the alleged shooter's security background. They said, yeah, we basically just played pretend. We played pretend cops, played pretend army men. And he wanted to get a security company off the ground, but he couldn't. I think he worked in the food industry or a convenience store or something.
That could be true. He's still a MAGA supporter who was extremely anti-abortion. And what I want to point out is that type of person is this clown's bread and butter. Okay, the archetype that he's describing, the fiercely religious, fiercely MAGA, right-wing guy who fancies himself as a tough guy security consultant, is Michael Knowles' bread and butter. That is his audience. This is your audience. This is the type of person that Michael Knowles goes, the libs are taking over, the Satanists are taking over, we've got to stop them kind of thing. This is Michael Knowles. This is his wheelhouse. This is the people that he appeals to above all else. Don't forget that he's basically going, oh, well, he's a liberal. No, he's one of your audience, sir. That's who he is. Fundamentalist, religious, MAGA, right-wing, loves guns, tough guy with delusions of grandeur. That is his bread and butter, right? That is his crowd. And now he's trying to say, oh, well, this isn't a right wing. It's a left. This is a leftist, has to be, because he had pieces of paper with no kings written on it. Oh, let's just ignore the manifesto with all of the, anti-abortion fundamentalist stuff on it. But, Michael Knowles talks about, the LGBTQI taking over America and taking over things. This guy is exactly his audience. Don't forget that when he gets into the next part.
So this is really bizarre. This reminds me of Butler, Pennsylvania. This reminds me.
I don't see how. I don't see how. Like the guy at Butler, that was, I believe, the attempted Trump assassination. That guy didn't pretend to be a cop. He didn't do any of the stuff. He and we're not even sure why the guy in Butler did what he did. We don't even know why.
Of the attempt to kill Trump. Because just as in this case, in Butler, Pennsylvania, the alleged shooter, I guess I don't need to worry about him suing me for slander or libel. That's why we say alleged in journalism is.
Actually, their estate can still sue you, but I mean, I doubt sort of an assassin's estate would sue you. But just because he's deceased doesn't mean his estate can't sue you for damages to his estate. So just be wary of that.
You don't want to be sued for slander or libel, even if all of the evidence points to the guy. But in this case, that guy had his brains blown out. So I guess I don't need to say alleged anymore, just force of habit. That guy was a ostensibly registered Republican,
Yes.
but his only political donation ever were to Democrats, and he obviously tried to murder Trump. So,
yeah, so it's just sort of this really black and white idiocy that he goes, well, if you're a Republican, you have to be for Trump. That's not true. In the early days of Trump, there were a lot of Republicans who really, really did not like him. That's the thing. There's still what's the project called? Oh God, I've had a mental blank. There's a project that is Republicans against Trump, essentially. They oppose Trump. I think Lincoln Project, right? It's basically a moderate conservatives, moderate Republicans, moderate and conservative Republicans that oppose Trump. So this idea that if you're a Republican, you got to be for Trump. No, that's not true. That is not true.
You can't quite pinpoint his politics. Same thing with this guy.
Oh, yeah, we can. I mean, yeah, he was a Republican, he was a conservative and hated Trump. Those things are not mutually exclusive. That's not a mutually exclusive thing. It's just like this. Well, if you're a Republican, you've got to be for Trump. No, there's a ton of Republicans against Trump. There's a lot of them. They're just not MAGA crowd. That's all. And so, yeah, that guy was a conservative Republican who his only donation was to the Democrats. It's probably because Trump was more opposed to Trump than he was opposed to the Democrats. It kind of makes sense,
He, I guess, said he was a Republican and liked Trump, but then he had the No Kings anti-Trump flyers in his car, and then he attacked.
Oh, and the manifesto against abortion, and the stating plainly the reason why he did it was because they supported abortion and killing it, Like, let's just ignore all of that.
To Democrat, but it was the Democrat who disagreed with the other Democrats, and sometimes political violence, sometimes violence is motivated by politics, by ideology. That does really happen.
And that is what happened in this one. And keep that in mind. Like, this was a clear ideological motivation of getting these lawmakers who facilitated, as they saw it, in their Christian mentality, oh, they're killing babies. That is what that said. Like, that is a clear ideology-based crime. That is clearly their ideology, and I will go a bit further, saying a Christian fundamentalist ideology that motivated them.
It tends to happen more on the left. You see a lot of political violence on the left.
What political violence? Like, this is the thing. The reason why he feels like he can get away with such an egregious lie of saying, hey, there's more political violence on the left, is because any political violence that comes from his side, like this guy, like the shooter that attempted to shoot Trump, like anything that comes from the right, he says, well, it's not from the right. It's from somewhere else. Now, I'm not saying there's no political violence from the left. I wouldn't say that. But the right is way more egregious. Remember that there was a bunch of people that tried to take a governor hostage or kidnap them, right? The Capitol insurrection, You know, like the incredible amount of violence we're seeing from the right, and for this guy to just go, oh, well, there's definitely more from the left. Like what? Like what? Like, I'm not saying there's none. It's just, can you name one? Yeah, so, okay, on October 8th, 2020, the US Federal Bureau of Investigation announced the arrest of 13 men who suspected of orchestrating a domestic terror plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, and otherwise using violence to overthrow the state governor. Right? This is the kind of thing that we're talking about. Can you find a correlation? Like, I'm happy to acknowledge it if it's there and condemn it if it's there. Like, but I'm not going to say, hey, you know, nothing happens on the left and it's all from the right. But like, this guy was a ideological Christian anti, or you know, pro-life, as they call it, pro-life person that had clear motivated reasons for attacking these people. And he wants to spin it into, oh, he was a left-wing person that, you know, was angry at the way that they had voted against giving immigrants. Come on, stop lying.
None on the right. So I'm not discounting that. Sometimes ideology motivates violence. Sometimes religion motivates violence.
Yes, and both are true in this one. Both ideology and religion motivated this violence.
Sometimes terrorism, which is targeting civilians for political purposes, motivates violence.
You could probably put it under that too, because, you know, I'm sure that part of the motivation was to intimidate other lawmakers. So you could possibly extend that as well.
And sometimes people are just kind of crazy.
That is true, but that is not the case in this one. He had clear intent and a method that he wanted to implement to carry out his plan. It wasn't a schizophrenic hearing voices or something like that. No. It was a fundamentalist Christian MAGA guy who wanted to stop lawmakers that passed pro-abortion legislation. That is the truth. And this might have been early on, before we had the reports of the manifesto or further reports, but keep in mind, this man never corrected a damn thing about this, right? Never corrected a damn thing. And this lack of accountability for people like this from the Daily Wire, who never go back and say, hey, we made it wrong. This guy was actually from the right. He had a anti-abortion, and we condemn his actions from our side. They never do that. The lack of accountability is evident. And so, and there they hide from having this journalistic integrity of having to go back and correct or update their records with new information. They basically say, well, we're not news, we're entertainment. But he markets himself to exactly the same kind of people that committed the crime in the first place.
And I know that's going to seem like a cop-out to a lot of people, but it's really not. It expresses a truth about human nature.
Oh, yeah, it is. Because this chump wants to believe that more violence occurs from the left-hand side of the political sphere than the right-hand side. And the only way he can do it, the only way he can get that done, is basically by disavowing anybody from the right that does anything violent and say, well, they're not with us, which is incredibly convenient.
That in secular modernity, we don't want to acknowledge, namely, that the perversity of the human heart is much deeper and broader and much less predictable than we acknowledge in modernity. We think human beings are like computers and we just kind of figure them out and we run an operating system and that's that. No.
I don't, who thinks that human beings are just like computers? Are you high? I don't think anybody thinks that. Like, that's part of the problem. We're not computers. We have a whole wide range of different systems and motivations and emotions and wow. So this is part of his technique. He'll set up this straw man of what people think, and then batter it down and say, oh, look, I debunked it, when nobody thought that in the first place. Nobody thought that. Nobody thinks humans are like computers. You know, we might say, hey, the brain works in this way like a computer, but it's really just a metaphor, an analogy to make a comparison with. We don't just think like... Woo! Yeah, Michael Knowles, what the Pope of Cope.
Concupiscence and the perversity of the human heart are a lot more complex than that. And
yeah, so this whole thing about the human heart, it's just a metaphor as well. We know that the heart is not involved with decision making. It's a leftover from something that used to be called cardiocentrism. I think it was cardiocentrism. It's basically, at one point in the ancient world, people thought that the heart was the seat of all thoughts, because when they had a particularly strong thought or thought something that was fear or something like that, they would feel it in their heart. Like, we know better now. The heart's got nothing to do with it. We have to address the problems in people's minds, and that lies in the brain. So neurology and psychology, psychiatry are the way to go. Not like you've got to change your heart. Well, I wonder if I get a pig's heart, that'll do. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Well, very rare. I mean, there is a bit of an impact on your mental state from your organs. That is true. There is some feedback systems, but not to the degree that sort of your heart being, your nature being part of your heart is just a metaphor. It doesn't do really that much.
This guy,
you probably have more feedback from your stomach and the bacteria in your stomach, actually, which can actually make you do stuff. It's wild, actually. I was watching this thing where someone was sort of going over that the bacteria can send signals wanting things, and that can be interpreted by your body as like a craving for certain foods. Like, wild, right? Like the bacteria in your stomach actually can impel you to do certain things. Wild. Oh, Marty, I think you scored a readership, my friend. So that is awesome. Enjoy your emotes and things. And you're free every second Thursday by my time, Thursday morning. So Wednesday night, I do a member stream. You'll be able to enjoy that as well. No guttural feedback. I will feed you my gut anytime.
Just been kind of a weirdo. And the fact that you can't quite place him.
Oh, there's no problem placing him. You just don't want him. You want to say he's not part of our gang. He is exactly the type of person that would be watching you, religiously, pun intended, right? Because you are the dopey Pope of Cope. That is exactly the type of dude that would be watching Michael Knowles and going, yeah, these LGBTQI people with their abortion bills, they just make me so mad. That's exactly your audience, sir. This is exactly your guy.
Politically, speaks to that. And the fact that, unlike in Butler, Pennsylvania, where there were these totally inexplicable security failures, and where you're talking about Trump, and it's right before the RNC, and it seems like there might have been, if you're going to suggest a conspiracy, that one makes a little more sense, that there were so many just inexplicable errors apparently leading up to that.
Well, I don't know. I don't know a lot about that. As far as I know, I mean, it was sort of lax by the security team, as far as I'm aware. Like, they did not perform that well, but I mean, they did protect him and they did take out the shooter. So, definitely someone was doing something there. Maybe it was not the best protection, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what happened on that one. I really don't know.
The timing was so on the nose. In this case, though, no one had really ever heard of these state lawmakers. What was this about?
Abortion. It was about abortion. We know that. It's abortion. It's abortion. The thing you keep going on and on and on and on about, Michael Knowles, your pet issue, apart from LGBTQI issues, like that one. Yeah. Abortion. That's what it was about.
It might just have been a crazy guy. That was a great clip.
Yeah, no, it wasn't just a crazy, like, so his I mean, even on his ridiculous sort of like false dichotomy there of, oh, it's either, you know, a crazy person or somebody with an ideology. Look, there's other reasons as well. There's crimes of passion. There's you know, it's not a dichotomy, right? Like this isn't a dichotomy. The only reason somebody does something like this, there can be other things that motivate them apart from ideology and religion, and, you know, someone's mentally ill and decides to do that. There's a whole wide range of things. Even if you just take his stupid dichotomy, though, it definitely was ideologically motivated. Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to know that. How much Daily Wire was in the guy's browser history? Yeah. I mean, if we're going to something like Columbine, right? So basically what happened at Columbine, and I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Michael Moore. I think Bowling for Columbine was actually a pretty good documentary, but they tried to blame everything on for the shooting at Columbine, except for, you know, the fact that they had access to weapons and ammunition from, like, they went to Target or something and got ammunition, which is just, that blew my mind when I found that out. Apparently they've stopped doing that, selling sort of ammunition in department stores, but let me tell you, my mind was blown when I found out you could go to Big W and grab a box of shells for your shotgun. That blew me away, quite frankly. Anyway, but they blamed it on everything. They listened to Marilyn Manson. So they actually had this really interesting interview with this, I think it was some right-wing pundit talking to Marilyn Manson, and it became very evident very quickly that Marilyn Manson was a lot smarter and a lot more aware of social problems than the person sitting opposite him, the right-wing pundit. It was hilarious because you had this goth guy in makeup making very prescient and intelligent points, while the other guy just tried to blame him for all of these shootings and kids being depressed and all that kind of thing. Very interesting interview. But they also tried to blame video games because they played video games. And yeah, so it was just this whole thing of blaming everything. And I think the documentary was called Bowling for Columbines because yeah, but I don't think Ramstein was available to them, mate. Like I don't think Ramstein was actually in the country, so they had to go with who they could get access to, because aren't they German? I think they're German. Yeah, they did, but they couldn't pin a German band down for an interview. I mean, why would they? So they did it with Marilyn Manson. But sort of, as Michael Moore pointed out, they went bowling right before it as well. So why aren't we blaming the bowling, right? Like if we're going to make stuff up about what they're doing, like why not blame the bowling? And this kind of seems like that. They're willing to blame anything except for what it is. And so if we're going to go through and see if they played any violent video games beforehand, why aren't we seeing if they were exposed to right-wing talking points, especially because the manifesto is in line with the manifesto was in line with right-wing talking points, exactly the same type that this asshole of a gerbil goes on and on and on about on his channel with 2-point-something million subscribers to, right? Like that's the problem. And the other problem is that where we have someone come back and we reflect, right? We have somebody say, hey, I feel pressured to be a lesbian, okay, or identify as a lesbian, I'm sorry. Because Michael Knowles' thing of she was pressured to be one is not true. That is not the story. But we have to, we reflect and we say, hey, is there anything we can do to make it better? The problem is that because these pundits are spinning things to say, oh, well, this wasn't us. This had nothing to do with us. It was a leftist shooter. I mean, their title was a leftist extremist attacks. That, it's absolutely crazy but they never correct themselves, and these people never reflect. These people never look at, well, is there anybody in my sphere that could be dangerous, right? Is there anybody in my sphere that is doing the wrong thing? Is there anybody in my sphere that is too fundamentalist and out of control? They never look at that because they never get told about the people that are doing this. It's never them. It's always somebody else. It's always the left's fault or the LGBTQI's fault or somebody else's fault. It's never them. So I find it horrible, absolutely horrible, that they spin this. They don't accept that some of the things they say, you know, I'm not blaming them entirely. You're still responsible for your own actions, but it may have contributed. And that, you know, that's why we come out. And if there is, I mean, I can't even think of an instance of left-wing violence. Like maybe the Black Lives Matters protests. That's why we come out and say, hey, if you know, attacked or assaulted somebody, or if you burnt down something, we condemn that behavior, right? It's why at the No Kings they were saying, do not use violence, don't bring weapons, do not look for a fight. We are peacefully protesting. But, you know, we can condemn these things. I can be a supporter of Black Lives Matters and condemn violence carried out during those demonstrations. That's not a contradictory position. It is a perfectly reasonable position, right? Like I don't have to do that. I can support LGBTQI protests and things and condemn people that carry out violence on others in support of it. But I can't even remember any. Like I cannot remember any. That's true, actually, Luke. That's true. And I can support what he's done. Like I can say, I support everything that guy believes in. Luigi, is it Mandaloni? Mangione. Yeah, Luigi Mangione. I can support everything that he believes in and still condemn the violence that was carried out. You know, I totally get you. Yeah, sure. That's an instance. Absolutely. I think that it's emblematic of just how bad the system, the medical system has got over there, the healthcare system has got over there. So, you know, absolutely. Yeah, allegedly. No, I got you, Luke. But, you know, this is why we reflect and we go, okay, is there some better way to do this? Can, you know, do we watch out for this? You know, it's good to reflect, but these people never do. And they never do corrections. They never do any kind of accountability. They never stop with their 24-hour anti-LGBTQI, anti-abortion, anti-anything but Christian traditional values broadcasts again and again and again. And most people aren't on board with it. Most people don't want it. I think that, you know, most people would sort of say, hey, yeah. Well, that will do it for Fundamentalist Pals. This was Michael Knowles. All hail the new Pope of Cope, because if he's got to cope with, you know, No King's protest as pathetic and weak and, you know, astroturfed, like seriously, that is the most cope I have seen out of anybody in quite some time. But thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget, be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. Don't manipulate news. Like we can when something happens, at least hold off. Like just hold off until we have at least a set of facts that do support something. That's what journalism should be. Not just, hey, I'm a right winger, so I've got to just bring out all this frigging bull crap in order to deflect attention away from whatever it is, or possible attention. Like we didn't even know at this point. So yeah, but do take care of yourself, and I'll see you all. Oh, what have I got coming up? Actually, I'll quickly go through that. So Tomorrow is a day off, but I still got to do a presentation and prepare for the debate on Sunday. That is going to be here. It's going to be on Modern Day Debate, but I'm going to be running it here. The after show is going to be done by Max on Sherba Mate, which I'm quite thankful for. Always a friend of the channel. Max is awesome. So he'll be running an after show. I will be showing up there if you do want to comment or yell at me or, tell me I didn't do a good job. That's fine. It's all good. Or if you want to compliment me and say, hey, that was a great debate, really enjoyed it. Either or, that's all good. On Sunday, we should be back on Ember's channel for that is Sunday. Yeah, the next Sunday, we should be back on Ember's channel for the debate dissection. I think that on Wednesday or Tuesday night Eastern time, I should have another aimbot, which people seem to love, and I love doing them. So I am all in favor of that. And we're back with another Fundamentalist Fails next week. So thank you all so very much, except for Gers being bloody cheeky in the chat. Look, you cheeky bugger. Don't. Someone get out the banhammer. Hang on, let me give Gur a bonk. It's been ages. How dare you come back here after being away for so long and just hassle my beautiful dome? How dare you, sir? Here, have a bonk. Oh, that's a banhammer. Whoops, wrong one. Hang on a sec. No, don't ban Gur. Don't ban Gur. Gur's fine. Gur's fine. There you go. Bringing a bonk. No, don't ban Gur. All right, just I'm joking. I'm so joking. No, sorry, I didn't mean to do the banhammer. I got the wrong one. No, Deviant, calm yourself. Calm yourself. Calm thyself. Anyway, lots of love. Take care. Like, subscribe, share with people if you would be inclined. I'm really looking forward to this debate. So if you want to share that around, please do. I want to get a big crowd here for the debate. It always makes me feel fantastic. And do have a great one. I will catch you on the flip side. Pope of Cope.